Good evening, everybody. This is Mr. Abdul Wahab Jamal saluting everyone. Welcome to a new English session. Today we are going to deal with English as first language, Cambridge International School, and we are in Unit 4, Lesson 1, Cambridge Lower Secondary. Today we are going to deal with flash fiction. The lesson is flash fiction. And in order to start, we have to set our objectives. We are going to learn about the genre of a flash fiction. We are going to explore the features and the conventions of the flash fiction. Then we are going to explore the symbols and images inside a flash fiction story or flash fiction text. And then we are going to analyze how to use these symbols and images for effect. And in the end, we are going to plan and write a flash fiction story. What is a flash fiction? Flash fiction is a very short story that conveys a powerful image or powerful message in just a few words. It is usually under 1,000 words. It is between 200 to 300 words. It focuses on a single moment, single idea, or an emotion. It is simple, but it is full with imageries and from the word flash fiction, so it is something related to the technique of flashback, okay, and it is of course fiction story, it is imagery story, so you are shifting between past and the present. So the key features of the flash fiction is it is short and concise, every word matters, we don't have that much details, strong emotional impact, it will leave a lasting impression, it is sentimental story, and it focuses on one idea or one moment, often revolves around a single theme. Example of a flash fiction: For Sale is very important and very well-known story, Baby Shoes and Never Worn. This six-word stories tells a heart-breaking tale in just a few words. For Sale, Baby Shoes, Never Worn. So the title itself, it will tell you what the story is talking about. And inside this story, we have lots of proverbs, lots of symbols, and lots of imagery. What is a proverb? A proverb is a very well-known saying that states general truth or piece of advice. For example, a picture worth 1,000 words. While the symbol is an object or a sign that represents something or another theme. For example, a dove symbolizes peace. Imagery is descriptive language that creates vivid pictures in the reader's mind while using the five senses. Let's read the story with each other. We have a very good example of flash fiction story, and it is called 1 in 23. 1 in 23. So one person in 23 people were found on a boat. Flash fiction is a type of a story, as we said, based on the idea of saying something powerful in a few words. Let's read this fiction story, flash fiction story by Helen Wright. It is about a refugee, a person who has been forced to leave their homeland and has sought shelter in another country. Let's read, let's listen, let's focus, and let's taste this story with each other.
Our land was beautiful. You should have seen the cherry blossom in the springtime. The foot of our mountain was clothed in it, and the sweetness of the figs in autumn. There is nothing like it anywhere. Figs were our country's first gift to the world. Anzuki, Halabi, Bukatsati, Obied. Such poetry there is in the names, and in the soft, ripened flesh you could taste the warmth of the sun that falls on the land of my grandfather's fathers. We burnt the trees to keep our child from dying of cold the winter after the power went down. My husband wept as he carried the branches from the orchard, but the snows were coming and we had nothing left to burn. He spared one. The last fruit was ripe on its branches, and the leaves had almost gone, the day the rebels took him away. I took my son to my sister in the city, but then the bombs came. They fell on the library, on the marketplace, on the internet cafe at the corner of the next street, on the hospital, on the people who were fleeing from the hospital. Our lives compressed to the 12-meter span of this boat. I called my son Ocean, because once I loved the sea. Now our land lies scorched and turned toward the earth, and 10,000 have fallen like leaves beneath these waters. Did you know that the fig is not really a fruit? No, it is a flower that is turned in on itself, so that all of the beauty and goodness lies hidden on the inside. All the colour that could in another life have become bright petals is wrapped in darkness, away from the world. But it is in there. It is in there.
It is in there. It is in there. So that's an example of flash fiction story. It is very sentimental and very lost, less impacting story, to be honest. Before getting started, I need just to talk about the story. So some words found inside the story: the cherry blossoms, flowers of the cherry tree. Wept, it means cried. Compressed, it means squeezed or made smaller. Scorched, burnt, or damaged by fire. Hidden beauty, the beauty that is not immediately seen. And the story is about refugee family forced to leave their homeland due to war. They escaped because of war. The narrator describes their beautiful land filled with cherry blossom and fig trees, which they had to burn to survive the cold winter. Her husband was taken by rebels, and she fled with her son to the city, only to face another bad circumstances, another bombing. They end up on a crowded boat, fleeing as refugees. The key events in sequence are: number one, the family enjoyed their beautiful land filled with nature. Number two, they burned the trees to survive the winter. Number three, number two. Number three, the husband was taken by rebels. Number four, the narrator and her son fled to the city. Number five, bombs destroyed the city, forcing them to flee again. And number six, they are now on a crowded boat seeking safety. The mood, the feeling of the speaker is sad, but he is hopeful. He is sad because my husband wept as he carried the branches from the orchard. And he is hopeful because he said, but it is in there, referring to the beauty of the fig or the life, which will be continued later. As we said, the story has lots of symbols and imagery. Some symbols in the story are the fig itself that represents the family's love, okay? The family's love to the homeland and its uniqueness. Whenever you will see a fig, you will remember what? The homeland. It is unique, it is special only in that land. Quotation from the text, figs were our country's first gift to the world. That's unique and special. The meaning, the figs symbolize the beauty and the richness of their land. Number two, the last fig tree that represents hope and resilience. Quotation, he spared one. And the meaning, the last fig tree symbolizes the family's hope for survival and a better future. The image, as we said, because it is lots or full with symbolism and imagery. The images are cherry blossoms. You should have seen the cherry blossom in springtime. It creates a vivid image in the lands of the land's beauty because of the sight. And burning trees, we burn the trees to keep our child from dying of cold. That's feeling. Evokes a sense of desperation and loss of the trees and loss of the family. If I wanted to summarize the events, okay, summarize the events of the story, what shall I do? Summarize what happened to this family in a few sentences, as we said, and then try to use first, next, then begin with. The family enjoyed the beautiful land filled with nature. The idea of using the time sequences is very important because you are depending on time or chronological order and you are shifting between past and the present. So first, the family lived peacefully in the beautiful land. Next, they burned the trees to survive the winter. Then, the husband was taken by the rebellers. After that, the narrator and her son fled to the city. Lastly, finally, they were forced to flee again and ended up on a crowded boat. I took those notes or sentences and I tried to make them like one paragraph using the sequences or the time sequences. And then they will ask me to reflect to the mood of the speaker with some words like desperate, hungry, sad, hopeful, angry, and happy. I would say sad is the best one, hopeful is the other one, as we said before, because the husband wept as he carried the branches, that's sadness, and hopeful, but it isn't there, it is in there. And let's analyze the symbols. Find two quotations about the fig and explain what each of them suggests. Figs were our country's first gift to the world. The figs symbolize the family's pride of their homeland and uniqueness. He spared one, which means the last fig tree represents the hope and resilience, as we said before. The story ends with symbol of the fig as a flower that has turned in words. Can you discuss what this image suggests about the female narrator and what do you think about her? Number two, the fiction or flash fiction, we have big ideas in a few words. What can you work out about the social and historical context? Is it story or is this a story old or modern? And what do you think the big idea of the refugee story is? Okay, the story for sure it is talking about the refuge, the war, okay, and surviving for searching for new life. It started with peaceful life in homeland, and then winter came. They have nothing, so they started to burn the trees for survival. After that, husband taken by rebels, they fled to the city. Bomb forced them to flee again, and on a crowded boat they seek or they sought safety. The story is new, the story is modern. We have bombing, we have boat, we have city, we have library. And of course the image suggests about the female narrator that she is survival. She is sad, but she wants to live. And when she said, I called my son Ocean, okay, that means she loved the ocean and she represents her son to ocean. And the ocean itself, it means unknown, the unknown future. We don't know what will happen later to her. That's the fig. So, if I wanted to talk about the story, what happened before, the family lived happily in their homeland, then warm countryside, a fig tree orchard is the setting, and the mother and the son was escaping war and the crowded boat on a crowded boat on the sea. I wanted now to uh, use some those notes and expand them into sentences. I have something called a noun phrase. So usually the basic sentence is the locket sat on the dresser, for example. I want to expand this sentence into a bigger one. So I will add a noun phrase, which is a phrase included noun. So I would say the golden locket with a tiny heart-shaped clasp sat on the dresser. I'm enhancing the sentence and making it complex. And then I will expand it into a verb phrase like the golden locket sat quietly on the dresser as if it waiting to be opened. A good example of a flash fiction, as we said, is 1 in 23. And I wanted to mention something very important about the flash fiction again. It is very short story that often under 300 words that focuses on single moment or idea. It uses vivid imagery and concise language to create a strong impact. And I have to put lots of imagery and lots of symbols in order to write. The best way to start your planning for your story or flash fiction story is what? It is to search for an item or an object. So the task is write a flash fiction story of your own. Okay? Write a flash fiction story around 200 words about a moment or a hope in a difficult situation. Use vivid imagery and symbolism like 1 in 23. Step by step, of course, you have to brainstorm, you have to plan, you have to write, and then you have to edit. How can we do it? Number one, we have to choose a central object or an idea about your story. In that story, 1 in 23, the object was the fig. And that fig, when I saw it, when I smell it, when I taste it, it will remind me, it will create memory in my mind about my homeland. So the idea of the fig or the idea of the object is to create a flashback and shift you from present into past. So you have to move from present to past and then go back from past into present to say what is going on. An example is a golden locket that holds memories of loved ones. Plan the structure. We have to use the outline. What happened before and what is going on now, because it is flashback. So moving from present into flash and then into past, sorry, then going back to the present. It happened before. The locket was a gift from the grandmother. And now the locket is a reminder of lost loved ones. I want to develop the setting, so I will describe where the object is now and where the object came from. And I will give an example of a locket sits on a dresser, for example, in a quiet bedroom, but it is originally came from cozy home with a fireplace. I have to use expanded noun phrases in sentences and expanded verb phrases in sentences or clauses. It will add details to the description while I'm using five senses in order to create image. The golden locket with its tiny heart-shaped clasp sat quietly on the dresser. I have to mention the time sequencers like before, after, now, first, then, next, after that, later, in order to show shift in time between past and the present. Before grandma passed away, she gave the locket to the narrator, and now it reminds her of her mother's love. So it is about an object you saw, you smell, you taste, you heard, for example, and suddenly you remembered some memories or something in the past happened. So you are shifting between time, between the present, and between past. Then you have to write your story, keep it concise, focused, because every word matters, and explain, give an example, and then revise this example, revise this writing, and edit your mistakes. I have two stories. The first one, The Golden Locket. Let's read it with each other. Then I have, that's a nice one, okay? That's about an item you have. I have another one which is about a plant, and that plant to create life or hope. So number one, the golden locket. The golden locket, with its tiny heart-shaped clasp, sat quietly on the dresser, catching the faint glow of the afternoon sun. It had been a gift from Grandma on her 10th birthday, a treasure passed down through generations. Inside was a faded photo of her mother, smiling as if time had stood still. Every time she opened it, she felt a pang of loss, but also warmth, as if her mother's love was still with her. She remembered the day grandmother had given it to her. They were sitting by fireplace, the flames cracking softly. Grandmother's hands, wrinkled but steady, had clasped the locket around her neck. "This is more than just jewelry," she said. "It's a piece of our family's heart." So that's past. And then I'm going to present. Now, years later, the locket was all she had left of them both. Her mother's laughter, grandma's story, they were all wrapped up in that small golden heart. She traced the intricate carving with her finger, feeling the smooth metal against her skin. For a moment, she could almost hear their voices, whispering words of comfort and love. The locket wasn't just an object, it was a bridge to the past, a reminder of where she came from. And as she held it tightly, she knew their love would always be with her, no matter where life took her. It is a good example of a flash fiction story because it has a title which is meaningful and related to the story. It has a strong imagery. It has time connectives to shift between past and the present. It has a personal voice of the narrator who is telling the story, and we have lots of sensory details and appealing description. We have under 300 words, the word count, and we have variety of sentences, and we have error-free in spelling and punctuation. We used some similes and metaphors, and we used on one key emotion, which is family bonds or nostalgia. Another one, another example, the crack in the pavement. The crack in the pavement is talking about a plant, okay, which survived. The tiny plant grew through the crack in the pavement, its fragile green leaves reaching for the sunlight. Amidst the ruins of the city, it was a sign that life could still flourish. Mara crouched beside it, her fingers trembling as she brushed the dust from the leaves. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and ash, a constant reminder of the bombs that had shattered her world. She remembered the marketplace, once bustling with laughter and the scent of spices, now reduced to rubble. She remembered the library, its shelves of stories turned to ash. Look at the description of the war. But this little plant, stubborn and defiant, reminded her that not everything was lost. So we have hope. Her brother Sammy knelt beside her and said, "Do you think it will grow bigger?" He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Mara nodded, though she wasn't true. "It's like us," she said. "We're still here, aren't we?" Sammy smiled faintly, his eyes lightening up for the first time in weeks. So we have hope. They had lost so much. Their home, their parents, their sense of safety. But this tiny plant, pushing through the cracks, gave them something to hold on to. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the golden glow over the broken city, Mara made a silent promise. They would rebuild, just like this plant. They would find a way to grow, no matter how hard the world tried to bury them. The homework, it is in the workbook, 4.1, Flash Fiction. You have focus, what is symbol or symbolism, and then what is a gold medal or a snake or an apple is representative or a sign to what, and then we have the story seeds, which is a story, looks like that one which we read, the plant on the crack. And then they are asking us about what? About some symbols inside it, like what's the garden, what's the seed, what's the snowdrops symbolizing. And then we have 4.2, the small but precious. We have the focus, to reread the seed again in 4.1 and highlight the time connectives. We have then practice, to read the text below and highlight the time connectives again to show the uh, shift between past and the present. And then we have the story that moves in periods of time. They ask us to write the dates in the order or the correct order in order to understand the shift in time. And the last thing is, in your own words and in your notebook, write a short story that told in different order. Use the time connectives to help you, and remember to put imagery and symbolism in your flash fiction story. I'd like to thank you so much for having me today, and we'll see you inshallah next session. This is Mr. Abdul Wahab Jamal saluting everyone, and thank you everybody. See you